This is Breaking Medtech. I am Ryan, and today Cope is on an adventure. So you get me solo, and I'm not going to do this for 30 minutes because I don't want to hear myself talk for 30 minutes. So we're going to try to keep it as tight as possible. So today's topic is why early stage companies need to focus on the right audience. So let's get this right off the bat. I'm not talking about like the right audience, like finding your ideal customer profile, even though that is kind of part of it. I'm talking like actually focusing on the right type of audience versus focusing on everybody, right? There's this concept that I think I hear a lot of these groups talk about, or this theory or this idea, and I know Cope and I have talked about it, so he feels the same way. I'll speak for him here. That, you know, you develop something, you make something, and your first thought is everybody is going to want what I'm making, right? Everyone who is in the target audience. So if I sell to peri-op directors, every peri-op director is going to want what I have. And it's just not the case, right? There's a lot of people who just aren't going to be interested in your product because they don't feel the pain point as much as you want them to do, or they don't have the budget, or like, they just don't believe in what you're doing because maybe what you are doing is so novel that they're just not ready for it, which is a real thing. All right. So for a lot of these companies, that's a bad approach, because if you're focused on such a large audience, you're going to end up spending a lot of time not talking to the right people. And what we want to help you do is talk to the right people. So the first idea that I just want to get out there is you need to talk to the right people. Now, how do you know who the right people are? It's the people who are excited to talk to you. All right. I would almost describe it as like if you were talking at a conference and somebody came up to you afterwards and was like, "Oh my God, everything you said resonates with me." That's the type of person you're looking for. The people who constantly question everything that you do, or go like, "Oh, that won't work," or like just because they're at some massive institution that you want to convert and you think it would look good on your website as like companies working with, it would be great if someone at that facility loved you, but that might not be the case. So you're better off getting a bunch of people who love you, who become evangelists for you, than getting a handful of big name customers who kind of like you but don't actively talk about you. Okay. And there's a couple steps that you can take to get from point A to point B, and we're going to cover them here. But here's the last thing I want to say about finding people who love you, all right? Seth Godin, who I love, has this statement that when you're launching something new and nobody knows who you are, the goal is not to get everybody. The goal is to get the people who love you and then forgive everybody else. Because maybe they'll eventually warm up to you, but if you're obsessed with trying to get the boy or girl or person to like you who you have a crush on, but they're just not interested, you're going to waste a lot of time. So it's better to actually focus on the people who love you and making them happy and using them as a springboard to grow. So let's quickly go through how you get from point A to point B. All right. So we talked about this last week. Number one is you can't solve a customer's problem on purpose if you don't deeply understand it. And if you want to connect with the people who are going to love you, then you need to deeply understand their problem. And just because you may be in the industry and maybe you're a clinician who created something that solves a problem that you as a clinician have, just because you're the clinician and you have this problem, it doesn't mean everyone's going to love it. So you got to go and talk to a bunch of other people. And if you're someone like me who maybe is around a department like sterile processing back in the day, and I saw something that people struggled with every day, and I invented something that solved that problem, that doesn't mean that I'm an expert in that problem. I got to go spend more time doing it. But the more time I spend doing it, the more time I spend talking to people, the better my messaging is going to be, the better the talking points that I'm going to use are going to be, the better I can describe the problem and be empathetic to them and develop a connection. So number one is, if you want to find the people who are going to truly love you, you need to take the time to understand their problem. That's why we dedicated an entire episode to it last week. The next thing you have to do is, be okay with the fact that you want to get to a no quickly, okay? You don't want to waste time. You're a startup. You have to hustle every single day. You don't want to waste time trying to convince someone who is on the fence. You want to close the people who love you and move to the next one and find the next one and make those people happy who do love you and are using your product. You can't chase everyone. You do not have the bandwidth to do it. And just because you know that they have a massive problem, right, doesn't mean that they know they have a massive problem, and it doesn't mean that they're emotionally ready to fix that massive problem. Another kind of rule of thumb is you don't need $100 million to do this. You don't need 25 reps to grow. You can do this if you're a founder. You could do this if you are a vice president of sales or marketing or whatever. Whoever is the person, whoever is your growth-driven person at your company, you don't need a massive budget. And we're going to talk about how you could do it without a massive budget, but you don't need a massive budget. You need a strategy, and you need to know who you're trying to target, and you need to go out there and make progress every single day. Because what a lot of companies don't realize is that even if you had $100 million and you went and hired a lot of reps, your infrastructure might not be able to deliver on the promise those reps are going to commit you to, right? And that's where you see companies do fail when they grow rapidly, maybe not in the medtech world, but in other industries, is their infrastructure collapses because they have no way to support the actual demand for their product. So sometimes growing organically and growing purposefully is the best strategy and something you need to be okay with. So now let's talk about attracting people to you that do love you, okay? So I like the idea of building a system that helps you attract people who love you for you, okay? Or loves your product for the problem that it solves because it matters to them, right? Back in the day, and I still think this is a really good method, is go out in your backyard. It depends where your backyard is, but if you live in a major metropolitan area, you probably have a lot of people you can go talk to about your product. And that's what you should be doing. You should be going out there. But to do this, that means you need to have clear messaging, or you need to have messaging, and then you need to be listening to how people respond to your messaging. And that helps you further develop your clear messaging. You have to show up consistently. So you should be out there every day hustling to close deals, or make progress, or talk to new people, or learn more about the problem, or grow a customer. And it means that you need to develop a system outside of going out there and knocking on doors of attracting people. And that's where I look at something like LinkedIn as a tool that is a really great tool for companies like this, because you can go out on a digital soapbox and talk about the problem, talk about your product, grow in public, and gain the attention of people who are genuinely interested. Now, does that mean that you're going to get everyone's attention? No, because again, not everyone is on LinkedIn. But it is better than literally doing nothing. If your only plan is going out there and talking to people within your geographical area, that's completely fine. A great way to supplement that would be doing the LinkedIn thing. So maybe you can expand your reach a little bit further. And then when you find someone who is a little bit further outside of your geographical boundary, but they're really qualified, that's a good qualified lead that you can go spend money on and spend time on, versus flying all over the country and just doing it randomly, okay? And another big thing that you have to do after you start going out and talking to people, or this is part of going out and talking to people, or talking to people on LinkedIn, is actually going and talking to them and resisting the urge to kind of just vomit about your product right away, right? You want to go and talk to them about the problem. Again, we covered this last week. But Cope and I joke about this thing that entrepreneurs love quoting the Lean Startup. They love quoting Seth Godin's Tribes. They love TED Talks about people building movements, but none of them actually ever do it. They don't follow the model. You know, they don't do the lean startup where you go out and talk to your customers and you build something niche and you test it out. They want to go big, and I get it. It's exciting. You develop something that solves a major problem. You think everybody's going to love it. You just want to go out and show it to the world. You want to show it to everybody. It doesn't matter if you're in Madison, Wisconsin. You want to go to San Diego. You want to go to Orlando. You want to go to Washington, D.C. You want to go to Maine. It doesn't matter. You just want to go out and talk it. But that's not how you build a company, right? And when you go and look at all of these companies that are successful, yeah, you have the rare ChatGPTs or some random other company, but more often than not, it goes a lot slower than you realize, all right? And that goes into our next point of you're not behind. You're just not seeing you're just seeing companies at the finish line, right? Everyone thinks like, oh, Google, giant success. Google wasn't a giant success for a very long time. Yeah, ChatGPT grew rapidly, but there's lots of companies that are very successful and very large in and out of the medtech industry that grew organically. It's not like Intuitive was a massive success overnight, but progressively they grew. And you can't look at the end product and go, I just want to be there. You have to take the journey. And that journey is going out, finding the right customers, finding the people who love you, right? There's this concept that you would actually, you're better off, you know, if you have 20 customers and 10 of them are just a giant pain and cost you so much time and money and like emotional stress, if you have 20 customers and 10 of them are like that and 10 of them are great, let's be honest, you don't need those 10 because the 10 that are horrible, because the amount of effort that you're going to have to do to convince them that you're right might not be worth the actual time and money. That's it's very hard to go like, oh, well, I'm making $1 million in revenue from those customers. How can I just throw them out the door? A lot of companies, 99% of companies aren't going to do that. But there are some crazy people out there who would go like, we don't deal with them. We're just done. We're done with them. We're not dealing with them. I want to focus on these 10 that love me, and I'm going to grow those 10 and use them as a springboard to find other people. So that's really it, right? I think we're at 12 minutes, 27 seconds right now of me just talking, which is way too much time of me talking. But really what I want you to take away from this is that when you're a small company, as exciting as it is to look at, there's 1,000 hospitals in the United States that we think we're perfect fit for, and each one of those hospitals is $1 million in potential revenue, and that's $1 billion. I think that does the math. I think the math is correct there. No, it wouldn't. No, it might be $1 billion, right? It's $1 billion. Okay, we're just going to say it is. So we can be $1 billion company. That's not the case. And if you go in with a mindset of like, we're going to get all $1 billion of opportunity right away, and then you're struggling because you keep talking to people who don't like you, it is 100% a mentality and strategy mindset. The mentality is you need to find people who love you, and the strategy is you look for those people and you focus on those people. And if that means that you have to stay regionalized and grow a little bit slower than you wanted to, then that's what you should do. And if your investors are pushing back, I find it hard to believe that they would, as long as you're making progress. I don't often talk to investors, but when I have talked to investors and I've asked them kind of about this exact problem, what they have always told me is, as long as we are seeing compounding progress, that we are growing, and yes, I'd like to get my money back sooner. Yes, I'd like to, whatever that deal is, or yes, I'd like to see that my investment is worth more today than it was 3.5 months ago. I wish it was 10x more and not 2x more. That is something that you may have investors say, but more often than not, when I have talked to investors and asked them this question, they're more interested in you showing compounding progress in movement, in positive movement every single day, and growing, even if it means that you're only gaining 10 customers this year versus 1,000 customers, because the chance of you actually gaining 1,000 customers in a year, unless you're some direct-to-consumer product in the medtech world, is very unlikely. Now, if you're a pharma product, that's completely different because you have a lot more options. But in a regular medtech world, selling to hospitals with longer sales cycles, selling to doctors with longer sales cycles, that's just not likely going to happen unless you have 100 reps out there absolutely crushing it. So focus on the right customers, focus on talking to the right people, focus on learning the problem, and focus on just growing every single day. This is Breaking Medtech. I hope you all have a great rest of the day.